Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. We are rejoined from all the way across the pond, Mr. Mark, the film guru Bullock. How are you doing on this Monday evening, sir? I know we got you up late.
I'm doing all right, thanks. How are you guys?
Doing great. You know, the news lately has been uplifting in regards to Washington. I think it started with Eric Bieniemy and obviously the Snyder selling coming down the pipeline. That is inevitable. But my first question, the Combine's going on right now. So for all of these, like Reed and I, draft junkies, we're in heaven. We love this time of the year. Were there some players that happened in the Combine that you think that took a big step in your eyes and looking forward to the draft that, in your mind, that you really like after what you saw at the Combine?
Yeah, well, I think there was obviously some guys that stood out with their performances and the numbers. I think for me, the main thing is to not get too carried away with just how strong athletically guys are, and make sure that translates back to what they did on tape. And like you see Anthony Richardson's numbers at quarterback, and you're like, Jesus, this guy's absurd. But you've got to go and make sure that translates. And from what I've seen of Richardson, which is admittedly very little, it seems like that does translate to what he can do. So that's obviously very promising in that point. Then you're going, okay, this backs up what I saw, and that's great. I think a few of the offensive linemen stood out for their athleticism. I thought a lot of them moved a lot better than I probably thought they were going to. I think the two Ohio State tackles, especially Paris, is it Campbell?
Johnson.
Johnson, yeah, DeJuan Jones.
Yeah, that's the ones. So those two stood out as guys that moved better than I thought. Well, everyone knew that Jones was going to be a little bit more of a struggle with his moving, but he moved better than I thought he would. But the other one was fantastic in how he moved, and everyone knew he was going to be, but he definitely stood out. And there were some interior guys, the center, John Michael, is it Schmutz or Schmitz or something like that?
Yeah.
Smith, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting up to date with all the draft names. I'm still behind on that. But he, I thought, moved really well as well. And that's something that, again, it kind of matches what you see when you watch the film of him. He's very athletic as a center, and he can move and get out in space and stuff. So that's encouraging that the numbers kind of back that up. So those are the few that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, definitely. And this seems like it's a really heavy lineman draft and cornerback draft, which luckily happens to be Washington's probably two biggest needs. What do you think they do at pick 16? Do you think that they go cornerback? You think they go lineman? You think they do what they did last year, trade back a little bit and pick a guy that not many people are outside of their radar as far as like mock drafts? Or what do you think they do at 16?
I think if one of those top offensive linemen were to fall to them, or maybe one of the top corners, that would be ideal. But I think a trade back would be kind of next on my list in terms of how I would want to do it. I think if you can drop back to the kind of mid-20s, I don't think there's necessarily a huge drop-off in linemen. Maybe you're not getting one of the top tackles, but you might get a center or a guard in the kind of mid-20s. And then you can maybe add another second-round pick to that, and then you're looking at a couple more picks in that top 50 range, and then you're able to, use the depth of the corner class as well, and then circle back in the second round and add a corner there, and even maybe a tight end or something else like that, or another offensive lineman if you like another guy. So trade back is looking kind of appealing to me. I think with free agency around the corner, that will kind of give us an indication what they're planning to do. Do they go and sign Orlando Brown in free agency? I don't think so. But if they were to go do that, then that's kind of them saying, well, we're investing a lot of money in the offensive line, so maybe the draft pick is going to be more focused on corner. Or maybe they're thinking, well, we're going to have to invest a lot of money on defense anyway, so we're going to, with the upcoming contracts and the first round picks we spent on defense over the last few years, so maybe they think, well, let's take a lineman, let's solidify that position, and we'll go and sign a free agent corner that can kind of be a veteran and fit in. So I think free agency will kind of tell us a little bit more on what their plans are there.
Yeah, and Hall,
Right.
if you guys wouldn't mind, just try turning down your headphones just a little bit. Sorry, Reed.
Oh yeah. So looking at Eric Bieniemy's offense, of course, everybody wants to point to the tight end and say that tight end's a position of need. It could be a position of need for Washington, but if you listen to Ron Rivera says that he has faith in Logan Thomas coming back. But then there's also reports that Washington was doing some pretty heavy scouting at tight ends at the combine. What do you think happens there? Do you think that it's essential that they get a tight end? Do you think that they might have that guy already on the roster?
I've thought tight end would be kind of a relatively big need, because I thought they would cut Logan Thomas just due to his contract and the injuries. I still think they obviously like the player, and the kind of veteran he is, the leader that he is. So that they obviously value that, and I got the same impression you did, that they've kind of mentioned Logan Thomas throughout the kind of Bieniemy press conferences and stuff recently, where they see him as a part of the team. So it doesn't seem like they're going to actually cut him. And if they're not, then they can say Logan Thomas is their kind of number one tight end. He's their top guy, and then you like the younger guys behind him with the Cole Turner and the Armani Rogers came on nicely, and the couple of young guys that they've got behind that. So if they're saying Logan Thomas is still going to be their number one guy, then that need for tight end isn't quite as strong. But I think if Logan Thomas is at all like a doubt with his health, or if you just want that kind of cap space that you can get from cutting Thomas, then I would think tight end would be kind of third on the list of needs for me.
Yeah, and then just to piggyback off of Hall's question, you kind of talked about those the top guys you have at cornerback, right? And you said if they're not there, then possibly go down the line, try to trade back to the mid-20s. Real quick, who are your top guys? Like, who would you be okay with Washington drafting at 16?
I haven't dug deep into the corner class yet, so I couldn't tell you exactly who the top guys are yet. But the corner class, from what my understanding is, it seems to be kind of there's no necessarily a top guy. There's no Darrelle Revis in the class that's a lock to be the top the number one corner. It seems to be a lot of guys are kind of mixed around, and it depends on what kind of system you run and who's going to be the better fit for each team. So certain teams are going to have one guy ranked higher than the other. So for Washington, it's going to be interesting because their scheme has kind of develops into this kind of pattern matching stuff. And so for that, you don't necessarily need the number one, like the guys that normally go in the top 5 or top 10 picks are usually the guys that are amazing athletes and can be locked down corners that are going to be press man coverage corners. You don't necessarily need that in this system. So the guy that they value might not be necessarily the guy that the kind of consensus value.
I got you with that. Now, let's talk about backup quarterback, because Hall's boy and Derek Carr just signed with the Saints. Obviously, he's very angry about that because he wanted Derek Carr to come here. But let's talk about backup quarterback. Somebody like Andy
got Derek
Dalton.
Carr at home on the podcast.
Hey, stupid. They say I look like Derek Carr, Mark. That's the inside joke.
But like a dollar store version.
Yeah,
maybe.
dollar store,
like a
Walmart
Walmart
4 version. But let's talk about backup quarterbacks. I've heard Andy Dalton possibly is going to be available, and he's a very cheap option. He has a connection with Ken Zampese. So what do you think Washington should go down with that backup quarterback? Are you more on the train of bringing back Heineke, or do you think they should go down another avenue?
I would probably look to go down another avenue, and that's not anything against Heineke in particular. I think it would be more of a case of the backup quarterback. Usually, especially when the plan is to go with a guy like Sam Howell, a young quarterback that's in his second year and he's learning a new offense. Usually, the kind of guy you go for as a backup quarterback is an experienced veteran that knows the system. So, I don't. Obviously, the backup was it Henny in Kansas City, and he's retiring.
Correct.
Whether they can find another one, I'm sure the Chiefs have had a couple of quarterbacks that have been in that room over the last 5 to 10 years while Bieniemy's been in Kansas City. So whether they can find someone that's been a backup in Kansas City or from on one of the other teams that have hired out of Kansas City that will know the system pretty well. I would think that would be the kind of guy that they'd be looking for rather than Heineke, if they bring back Heineke, I could see it. Obviously, the team loves him, and he gives you a spark off the bench and someone that can step in and play pretty solidly for you and hold the fort down. I think my concern with him would be with a young quarterback like Howell, and the fact that Heineke has that kind of history with some of this fan base where there's that Heineke hive that loves him. I think the moment, if they don't give Sam Howell time, the moment Sam Howell throws like an interception, it's going to be get Heineke in, and that's going to throw unnecessary pressure on Howell. So I think if you have that kind of veteran that A, knows the system and can help Howell learn that system, but B, is more of an unknown to this fan base, then that's probably going to take some pressure off Howell to have to be, the perfect starter right away, because he's not going to be that.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Bieniemy, I saw on Twitter you posted a couple of Substacks of what Bieniemy is going to be bringing to Washington as far as offense goes. So it's kind of a two-part question. I'm just kind of explaining in a little bit in the depth what he's going to be bringing to Washington offense-wise, and who do you think is going to benefit most with him implementing his offense here?
So the obviously the easy answer for that is Bieniemy's going to bring the West Coast offense that the Chiefs run, and that system is widely the system most teams use around the league is West Coast offense, but each team will have their different terminologies within that West Coast system, and the Chiefs will be no different. They'll have their own different sayings and phrases in that system, compared to because Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay both run a West Coast offense, but they both have their differences in that, and there's a ton of it around the league. But I think the thing that separates the Chiefs from anyone else is the amount of detail and scouting that they do on their opposition, and they don't just. It's not just tendencies. It's not just okay, we know this team plays cover 3 on 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 8 or whatever. And so we'll run a generic cover 3 beater to beat that. We know that they have a tendency to do that, and we know not just what their cover 3 is, but we know their rules within cover 3 and how they adapt to different cover 3 beaters. And then once you know the rules, then you can draw up plays that will beat those rules. And so while the magic of the Chiefs offense, a large part was down to what Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce could do off script and, running around and creating magic, and you can't replicate that. But a lot of that offense was also a lot of quick hitters that Mahomes was going to kind of his first read more often than not, and that guy was going to be open because the system was so detailed and the scouting report was so detailed that they knew where the weaknesses were going to be. They knew how to put certain defenders in a bind, and that would open up their kind of first read. So I think that's the part of the offense that can translate. And I think if Bieniemy can kind of incorporate that structure, then as long as Sam Howell is able to process, that's a lot of information to process pre-snap, is all the different looks and formations and stuff that Bieniemy gives you. Or the Chiefs offense have given Patrick Mahomes, it's a lot of information to process. And if you can process it pre-snap in the kind of 10, 15 seconds you have lined up at the line of scrimmage and going, okay, I know what this is based on the look we did, on Wednesday's practice. And I know I just need to go to this person here and that's going to be wide open. If Howell can process that, then he's going to be great. He's going to be fine. It's going to be very easy for him. And he's going to have a lot of easy open first reads, and he'll be fine. It's just a case of, can he process all that information? And that will take some time because it's not easy, but hopefully we'll see some progress on that.
Yeah, don't ask me to stand up because I'm pitching a tent right now, Mark. That was awesome.
Ew, Kyle. Jesus.
See, at least Mark laughed.
Put the
Mark had
18 and up
response.
tag on this one. Good God.
I'm not funny, Mark. I try to be.
The world's smallest tent. Yeah.
I appreciate you for laughing, though. That was a sympathy laugh, and I appreciate it. Reed,
okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of rumors, and I mean, this one will just be fast. I know it's getting laid out there, but there's a lot of rumors about a certain quarterback who's apparently a running back playing quarterback out there in Baltimore. About
according to
coming over
Hall.
here. Yeah. What are your thoughts on? Do you think Lamar Jackson would fit in an Eric Bieniemy offense? Or do you think he could really use somebody like that? I'm sure every offensive coordinator could, but
yeah, I think Bieniemy would understand how to adjust the offense to him. I don't think that would be an issue. I don't see how that deal kind of gets done. I get the latest speculation was like it would be Dan Snyder's biggest FU to the league to screw up quarterback contracts, but like he still has to upfront some of that money for that. And as much as he might want to say FU to the league, I don't know if he's willing to upfront his own money to do that. So
fair.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if that happens. But if it did, I don't think Eric Bieniemy would have any troubles adjusting the offense to Lamar Jackson.
So you say that, Mark, but tomorrow Snyder could walk down and put a new commander sticker on that plane and just get a new $100 million from the team. You know what I'm saying? But Mark, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you. Rivera made a comment talking about how they wanted to be able to supplement and bring back their guys in free agency in order for them to do what they want to do in the draft. So with that being said, in your mind, what would you do in free agency? What would you be going in any guys that you have circled that you would go get?
Yeah, I think the thing I would be looking to do is build that offensive line, or address the secondary, because you need to narrow down what you need to do in the draft. And if they like a certain offensive lineman in the draft that they think is going to be there in the first round, or if they trade back, or if in the second round or whatever, if they think they can add 2 or 3 guys there in the draft, then maybe they think, well, 2 or 3 guys, and we keep with Leno at left tackle, and we move Sam Cosmi into guard, and maybe Chase Rudy comes back at center. Then 2 or 3 guys is all we need, and we're happy with that. And then they kind of use some of that free agent money to add a corner in free agency. But conversely, maybe they go, actually, we don't like this offensive line class, or there's guys that are, they're a little bit too. Some of them are like kind of tweeners, like are not quite tackles, not quite guards. Some of them are not quite centers, not quite guards. So if you kind of feel that way about them, then maybe you go, okay, well, we need to go and spend money on offensive linemen in free agency, and then we'll take a corner in the draft. I think I would take kind of a hybrid approach. I would go and try to add an offensive lineman or 2 in free agency, and not necessarily doesn't have to go be Orlando Brown. I would possibly suggest that the other Chiefs tackle, Andrew Wiley, would probably be a better fit for them.
Okay.
Because he kind of locked down that right tackle position from last year, and he was good, and he could play that right tackle spot. But he also came into the league as more of a guard. So if they decide that Sam Cosmi, actually we kind of want to give him another go at right tackle, Wiley could quite easily slide into right guard, and that's that. Or you can flip flop them and they'd be fine the other way around. So I think that would be someone I'd look to target. And then maybe you look to add another guard or a center, or bring back Wes Schweitzer. And then maybe I'd be looking to add a veteran corner at some point, just to add some competition to the room, because they have Kendall Fuller, and then it's kind of St. Just another bunch of young guys. And you could argue, even as much as I like Kendall Fuller, you could argue that contract is a cuttable one. So I think they need some more veteran presence there, especially with Bobby McCain gone from the safety room. So adding another veteran corner would be not necessarily a top of the line like a James Bradbury or whoever's out there at 15 or 20 million a year. You don't necessarily have to go to that range, but a veteran guy that you can get in the kind of $5, $6, $7 million range would be good.
I got you. Now, my last question for you is kind of like a two-parter, but with Cole Holcomb, would you bring back Cole Holcomb for the linebacking core? And then off of that, do you expect a big money acquisition at linebacker through free agency? A lot of big names out there available, like Tremaine Edmonds, Bobby Wagner, Eric Kendricks just got released today, but they're going to be expensive. So do you think that we should bring back Cole Holcomb, and should we go and get one of those linebackers?
I'd bring back Cole Holcomb. I think he did a really good job for them, and I think they will value the job that he has done for them when they basically had no other linemen. No other linebackers. And coming off the injury, you wouldn't imagine he's going to be asking for the world. It's probably be a 1-year kind of prove it deal to get his actual contract next year. And I think Washington should absolutely take that, because he's a real solid player, assuming the injury isn't like hugely significant and would stop him from playing next year. And If you do that, then I think Jamin Davis proved enough last year that he can be a solid linebacker inside with Cole Holcomb, and they live mostly out of nickel anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily go spend a load of money on a free agent linebacker. I just don't think there's enough value there to do that. So I would stick with Holcomb and Davis. I'd add another veteran as a kind of backup that is. I don't want to say John Bostic because I know that kind of brings up some bad thoughts.
I was going to say David Mayo
but
didn't move the needle for you.
David Mayo plays a very specific role very well,
Right.
and anything outside of that specific role, he does not do well. But Bostic is the kind of level of guy that is a veteran, understands how the league works and how defense works, and can play fast enough where he can push the two guys in front of him. He could push Holcomb and he could push Davis. And if he happens to unseat one of them and take their job, then great. If not, he's at least pushed them to do better and provides them some nice depth. I don't know if Bostic's necessarily that guy anymore, but he's kind of been that guy in the past. And whether you can find another guy like that, I think that would be the kind of guy I'd be targeting. I wouldn't be going for a Tremaine Edmonds or any of the Bobby Wagner or what have you, any of those guys. I wouldn't be going for those big names.
I got you, Mark. I can't thank you enough for staying up late for us. I know it's probably like 5 a.m. or something over there, but I can't thank you enough for joining us. I know, I'm just kidding. I knew you're only 5 hours ahead, but thank you, Mark. I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. And until next time, we really do appreciate all the work that you do for Washington. You really do educate a lot of people. A lot of people love your videos that you upload on Twitter. So make sure you guys go follow Mark at Mark Bullock NFL on Twitter. Mark, I can't thank you enough, brother. Have a good night.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Appreciate
Have a good one. I love listening to Mark talk the game of football, dude, because like he does a lot of investigating in order to come up with his conclusions.
Yeah,
and it's not like he's just talking out of his butt. Like he really is vested into this product. He does a very good job of breaking it down.
Right, yeah. He's not Ace Venturaing it. He's not talking out of his ass,
Yeah. Yeah, now that my tent has settled down a little bit, it's time to wrap it right back up, baby, because it's time for a prospect breakdown. I'm sorry, it's time. Let's get into our prospect breakdown. Hall, I'm not sure, were you able to grab somebody?
Yeah.
All right, so Reed, if you want to start us off first, because I always start off with you because I
somebody else
like
go
making
first,
it
'cause
awkward because you're never comfortable with this.
I'm always comfortable. What are you talking about? Well, this one's going to be fairly, easy, but I didn't really watch a lot of film on him. Like I watched a lot of his games, but then like going back and rewatching a lot of Bryce Young stuff is just, and look, I'm completely aware we're not going after Bryce Young. I just think Bryce Young is a fantastic quarterback prospect. I mean, the way that this dude processes information, the way that he reads defenses, it's weird because usually you can like point to Alabama and you can be like, their quarterbacks aren't going to succeed because look at the players around them. But this year, they sucked. Their offense was terrible. Their offensive line was their wide receivers were some booty sweat. And like Jahmyr Gibbs is good, but they didn't use him the way that they should. And Bryce Young, the knock on him is the size. Like usually I always say like subtract an inch from a quarterback or from really any player when they're playing in college. Bryce Young, you got to subtract 2 inches. He was listed at 6 foot. He measured in at 5'10" and 1/8 at the combine, only 204 pounds. He's literally Kyler Murray size, except for Kyler Murray's 3 pounds heavier. So that's very concerning. I mean, the dude, he just the way that his body's built, it's scary, but like, if he was bigger, I think that it's true what people say. He would be one of the better prospects to come out in recent years. And it sucks for him, but somebody's going to get a good. We've seen these small quarterbacks have success. I mean, Baker Mayfield was good early on. Of course, we know Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. So I really think that he's going to be fine. And if I'm the Texans, baby, I'm trying to make sure that I get to that number 1 spot because the Colts, they're eyeing that old boy from Alabama.
Yes, and I thought Bryce Young did very well this year, and I do think that he's the best quarterback in the draft. He's probably the only one that I'd be willing to take at 16, to be perfectly honest with you. But for me, this one was submitted in by Kim Parkhurst on Twitter. Thank you, Miss Kim. Really do appreciate it. She asked me to do a breakdown on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA. He's 6'1", 205 pounds. He is a senior. He has 50-plus starts in college, so he comes in with a lot of experience, and you see it on film. He stands tall in the pocket like Brady. I think he has a very, very good pocket presence, but the one thing that he limits is putting the zip on the ball at times. Like, he does have the capacity to zip the ball in there, but usually when he does throw into the ball, it does have an arc on it. It's not like he's putting it on a rope like Josh Allen every single time, but he has that ability to. I think he's a lot like Tyrod Taylor in the sense that he is an underrated athlete with his legs and an underrated passer. But he can get the job done. He knows how the offense operates. He hits his check down, I think, a little bit too late, but he has the knowledge on when to go to the check down, if that makes sense. Like Joe Burrow at LSU, when you go back and watch Joe Burrow, he hits his check down on time, in rhythm.
Everything's in rhythm.
In time, and to the point where his running backs are getting extra yardage. Dorian Thompson Robinson does it a little bit later. So it's not like they were getting the yak after the catch, but he still has a high percentage because this year he had 286 completions, a 69% completion percentage, 3,100 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 117 attempts on the ground, 650 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground, and 10 interceptions. So he had 39 touchdowns with 10 interceptions. Very, very good in his senior season, but I think that has a lot to do with the checkdowns. But at times, I think he lacks touch in very, very crucial and important situations, mostly in the red zone. He throws the ball high a lot, especially in that area, and you're supposed to, so nobody else can catch it. But it's like he doesn't put the ball in the right place for his guy to make a play. A lot of times it's just almost like a throwaway when he's throwing to the end zone. So I think the situational accuracy is a big concern for him. But I like the structure of this kid. I think as like a 7th rounder, he's somebody you can really work with because he understands how the offense works and he can do the read option very good with his legs. Sneaky athlete, but he wants to throw first. He just got to correct some things, throwing off his back foot a heck of a whole lot. But I think this kid it reminds me a lot of Tyrod Taylor. Now, that's a good serviceable backup to have.
That's a good comp for him. I never saw that before. It makes a lot of sense.
So it's funny that it worked out this way because I also did a quarterback.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude, this is crazy.
I did my 7th cousin, Jaron Hall from BYU.
Ooh,
A Mormon.
Yeah. 6 foot, 204. He's a 2-year starter after Zach Wilson obviously got drafted to the Jets. He stepped in 2021, and he started in 2021, and also 2022. He had just over 3,100 passing yards with 31 touchdowns, 6 picks. He has slightly above average arm strength as far as like NFL goes. He throws a very catchable ball. Like obviously you're just talking about DTR, where he throws like with a lot of like a little arch on the ball and stuff like that. Whereas opposed to Josh Allen when he came out, it was just like all fastballs and it was kind of like not a catchable ball, but obviously when you throw a little bit of touch, it's easy to catch, soft on your hands. He moves his eyes through his progressions.
When he's finished with work.
Like he's mobile. Like I just mentioned, he throws with touch.
So he's more like my uncle, where he's very good with touch, and DTR is kind of like my dad, who just not touching at all, just very reserved.
You could say that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Some of his weaknesses are he's inconsistent as far as accuracy goes. He's one of those really streaky players, kind of like Taylor Heineke, where once he gets on like a roll, he's like very, very good, but it goes the opposite way as well. Once he starts off bad, gets into a rut, it's really hard to get out of that rut, and he just plays really bad. He played really good against Oregon, even though Oregon just punished him. He played good against Wyoming, which are obviously Wyoming's not like a top school, but Oregon's a pretty tough school, Pac-12 school, Power 5 school. And then on the flip side, he played bad against a team like Notre Dame, who's been down as far as overall team goes. And then he played horrible against Liberty, which, I mean, Liberty's
That was a religious battle versus Notre Dame.
Yeah, and he lost.
Yeah. Christians win again, baby. Catholics, I'm sorry. He needs to any touch against the Catholics. You can't touch against Catholics. They do the touching.
So he moves through his eyes. He moves through his progressions with his eyes, but he needs to get like better and faster with it as far as like seeing the field. He needs to improve on throwing his receivers open. He kind of just throws to the receiver as opposed to throwing with anticipation.
Anticipation.
You know what I'm trying to say. Anticipation. Yeah. And doesn't lead to a lot of yak. So at the end of the day, he's probably going to be a backup. He'll be definitely like a day 3 pick probably. Obviously, Washington is going to be in the quarterback like day 2, late day 2, early day 3, late day 3 sweepstakes to add like a little bit like a third quarterback to the roster. He likes to push the ball down the field, which is a good thing. Like if you watch a lot of his throws in his tape, He throws a lot of back shoulder fades, throws a lot of deep crossers, a lot of pretty much 50-50 balls, jump balls, which I know a lot of people here love the YOLO balls. But yeah, he's compared to like a Baker Mayfield just in size and stature, arm strength, kind of like he plays with that moxie, can run a little bit underutilized athletically, but can definitely run for some yards. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's a poor man's Baker Mayfield, and I'm probably nothing more than a backup.
I like that.
He's interesting because when like during the season, I know places like Walter Football, which by the way, if you ever type in NFL mock draft on Google, Walter Football is always 1 or 2 up there for some reason. They haven't updated their website since 1992, so that's pretty cool. But they had him as a 2nd-round pick at one point. And
I mean, coming into the season, like a lot of
skill set. I mean,
yeah, a lot of scouts were really looking forward to see what his 2022 season would be like. And let's just say that they came away disappointed and underwhelmed, which is why he's probably slid from a 2nd-round pick, 3rd-round pick to like a day 3 pick. So, I mean, he has the tools, but like you said, he's just way too inconsistent right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now let's go to our first fan question. This is from the Colonel, as always. And this question is pertaining to my actual lookalike, not my fake lookalike in Derek Carr. But his question is, Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football thinks Jimmy G is perfect for the Washington Commanders.
Did you say Kyle Brandt your lookalike?
No, Jimmy G. And to develop Sam Howell. What do you guys think?
I think it's more Kyle Brandt.
Shut up. Thinks Jimmy G is perfect for the Washington Commanders and to develop Sam Howell. What do you guys think, and what are the odds that Jimmy G is wearing the burgundy and gold next year, Hall?
I'd probably say I'd give it like a 10% chance, maybe. Like, obviously, a lot of people are saying that Rivera is leaving the door open as far as like when he like does his interviews and how he words like QB1, and he's not the starter, but he'll have the chance to be the starter and whatnot. So a lot of people think that's like code word for Ron Rivera's using code word for if something falls into his lap or if they can get a deal done for a reasonable price with a guy like a Jimmy G or something like that, that they would bring him in. But I don't really give any credence to that. I think that Sam Howell is going to get every opportunity and then some to get the job and probably lose the job. They are going to bring a vet in, like we talked about, Andy Dalton, maybe Jacoby Brissett, one of those lower tier kind of like spot starter type of guys. But I think that they want to roll with Howell, and I think that they're going to give Howell every opportunity. So I don't really see Jimmy G being wearing the burgundy and gold.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. I loved your explanation and talking about how Rivera, like, the subtle hints was saying he's going into the offseason as QB1. And everyone, I hear people talking about how that could possibly mean that he could make another move. Possibly Lamar, Derek Carr was referenced, everything like that. I'm looking at it where he's learning from his mistakes with Dwayne Haskins, who was a young quarterback, only had 1 season starting, and he gave him the starting job. And he said after that, the biggest mistake was labeling Haskins as the starter and not making him work for it. And I feel like that's what he's doing here with Sam Howell through the media, not pumping up Sam Howell to the point where he knows he's the quarterback one, but still letting him know that could be taken away, so you better make sure that you work at it. Just how I looked at it. But to answer your question, Colonel, I don't think Jimmy G is perfect. I think Jimmy G wants to start. I don't think Jimmy G would come here to be able to develop him, and I think he's going to come in with a price tag. He obviously has some worth with San Francisco, but that's going away. And I think Las Vegas is a team that you could really look at, possibly maybe Tampa, just based on...
There's reports out there that they're going to probably aggressively pursue the Raiders are going to pursue him. So
yeah, which makes sense with Josh McDaniels and everything like that. So I think it's more about starting than anything else. So if I'm going to put the odds, I'll put the odds at 5%. What's his jersey number? What's Jimmy Garoppolo's jersey number? 10%. I'll put it at 10%.
Sick. Yeah, no, same. I know that there's rumors that he was a quarterback that we wanted last year, but yeah, I think that they're very interested in Sam Howell and what he can do. I don't think that they're going to bring in somebody who's probably going to win the starting job. I think, like Holland, you said, they're going to give Sam Howell as long as he works and he goes out there and shows that he wants to be the guy and that he's going to try to grab hold of this thing. I think they're going to try to give him every opportunity, unless, of course, they bring in a Lamar Jackson. But
yeah,
I beg to differ. Bubba.
Talking about pitch a tent, my goodness, that'd be the national monument. Now, this next question
is
from
tent,
the Colonel.
Though.
I know, and I'm just talking out loud. Now, this next question from the Colonel read: pundits are taking the Commanders picking a tight end, possibly in the first or second round. Is this just subterfuge, smoke and mirrors, or are we seriously interested in a tight end? Are the prospects this year that good? We already have a fairly deep bench at the position. It's a good question.
Yeah, the thing about tight end is do think that this year you can get some pretty good guys like into day 3. And I know that's usually the case with tight end. I mean, you look at all the good tight ends in the NFL, like Travis Kelce, George Kittle, they're all guys who went a little bit later in mid rounds. But I mean, look, this is a very, very good tight end class. I mean, coming into the year and throughout most of the season, it was considered that Michael Mayer was the number 1 guy. Now all of a sudden you're hearing reports Dalton Kincaid. I know some people like Darnell Washington, and then Luke Musgrave. I mean, there's a lot of good guys. So if one of those guys falls to you that you have rated really high, I could see it. But I really think that if they target a tight end, maybe, who knows, they might not. But I think that it'll be more in the middle rounds again, kind of like they did with Cole Turner last year. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I wouldn't put much stock into them taking one in the first or second round.
I think I do disagree with Reed here in only saying that
that's because you're wrong, Kyle.
I do think that if they go after a tight end, it will be early on in the first or second round if they see fit based on what the prospect is there. I have a hard time thinking they're going to do that with the first rounder, though. I will be honest about that. But the reason I say that is because they did it with Cole Turner, right? And there wasn't much production from that sense, not to any Cole Turner's wrongdoing, right? But they don't want to redo that mistake. So they're going to try to go up earlier to get the investment, to get the production out of it. But I think that letting go of Logan is a huge gamble in itself. And so I think that if you're drafting Darnell Washington, he's your tight end 1.5, because if you bring Darnell in as your starter, you're basically going to limit that tight end position just based on how his feet are. He needs a lot to progress in the passing game. He's a road grader in the run game, but when it gets to the passing game, he needs to be polished up. And so that's why, for me, it's hard to look at it and say, if you're going with that second rounder, if it is Darnell Washington, I absolutely do love it, but he's going to have to learn from Logan. And that's my big question here is everyone keeps saying Logan's gone, so we need to get somebody in here. I don't think that's the case. I think we need to get some good youth in here, but it's not at the expense of Logan, because Logan is very valuable in the sense of being able to help these guys transition into pros. And so I think that having Logan is always an asset to have. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did draft a quarterback in the higher rounds this year, just getting that extra production.
Tight end.
Yeah, well, you know, just like Reed on the weekends, when you see a good tight end, you just got to grab it,
Yeah, you just got to make sure nobody's looking.
I think that I don't think if they do get one, I think it'll be like late day 2, maybe like on day 3. But I think that they want to keep Logan because they want to have a veteran in the room. I think they liked what they saw from Rodgers before he ended up getting injured.
Yep.
And a lot of the beat reporters that were out at training camp last year were saying that Cole Turner was having a great training camp, and they were excited to see what he was going to do on the field. And then he obviously ends up getting injured, and you don't really see him that much until towards the end of the season. So I think that they feel good about Logan Thomas coming off the ACL another year removed from that. I think that they like what they saw from Cole Turner, and they think that he can evolve, especially in Eric Bieniemy offense. I think that Cole Turner, especially in the red zone, is going to be a factor this year if he can stay healthy. And I think they like that Rodgers presents that athleticism coming from a quarterback position that switched over to tight end, kind of like Logan Thomas. And they've had success with Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas was a quarterback?
Yeah, they had Logan Thomas. They had success with him when no one thought they would get anything out of him. So I think they feel the same way with the tight end room now. And obviously John Bates, who is a great blocker, is going to keep progressing in the passing game as well. But yeah, like I said, I could see them taking a tight end, but I don't think it would be early. I think it would be like late day 2, maybe day 3, if anything.
Yeah, I just hope it's not that case, because you're getting the same production. But hey, let's go to the next question. This is from Kevin Cracky Walsh, who who helped us co-host on Thursday. Appreciate you, Kevin. This question, Hall, with the Vikings releasing Eric Kendricks, it just adds to a great pool of free agent linebackers. Who do you want out of Zach Cunningham, Deion Jones, Levante David, Devin Bush, Anthony Walker Jr., Tremaine Edmonds, Kyle Van Noy, and now Eric Kendricks?
I mean, obviously, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Tremaine Edmonds, just because he's a beast up in Buffalo. He's coming from Sean McDermott, who obviously came from coach under Ron Rivera. So he would kind of know, just kind of not the system, because they run jacked up real system, but I think he would know as far as like the culture that Ron Rivera has is almost like the same as Buffalo. So he'd be like an easy just fit. Obviously, he's a top tier linebacker at his position. And but like we were talking about with Mark Bullock, I don't think that linebacker, as far as like one of the top guys, is on their radar. I wouldn't be mad if they signed a guy like that, but Yeah, I would Tremaine Edmonds or even I like Zach. I've always liked Zach Cunningham coming out of he's with the Texans, but I know he's kind of like getting up there in age now. I think like something like that. But
He was
either
still
way,
very productive. Yeah.
yeah, he's still been very productive, definitely. But yeah, I think that they like Cole Holcomb and they're gonna try to stick with like a cheaper linebacker guy like Cole Holcomb. So
Yeah, with Kevin asking the question, I'm assuming this is with a gun to my head. So if I have to choose one of these, I'm going to have to go with Deion Jones. And the reason for that is because of the versatility, what he does at the position, being able to cover the ground game, also the passing game, being used in those blitz kind of formats. I absolutely would love Deion Jones. And no disrespect to Tremaine Edmonds, Virginia Tech boy. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for him. I love the kid. Watched him in college, and I wanted him in the draft that year, but I wasn't going to cry over it. But I do think that Deion Jones just adds the other element to this, because the one way you can target Tremaine Edmonds is in the middle of the field, making him go sideline to sideline. Deion Jones, that's not as much, and I'd much rather add that into this arsenal because of who we have up front. Like with Deion Jones' biggest issue is getting off blocks, right? Well, if you have John Allen, Deron Payne in front of you, there's not that many you have to get off of. And Deion Jones is the type of guy that can come up and clean that up for you and also help in the passing game, matching up with running backs and tight ends and such. So unless I'm mistaken, it's Deion Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be upset with any of those guys, to be honest. But I'm going to throw a name out there. I don't think many people are going to agree with or like. I'm going to say Devin Bush. That dude's got the sickest haircut that he has for a very long time. I don't even know what it is. It's like part dread, part mullet, and that's cool to me. And plus, you can plug him in there right in the middle. I mean, he's still young. He didn't really produce like he was expected to, obviously, in Pittsburgh. But the dude's, I mean, hey. The guy's a freak of nature. Maybe he just needs a change of scenery. And
I love me some Devin Bush as a Michigan boy. And when he went to the Steelers, I was like, yeah, that's a perfect fit. But he has not been the same since that injury.
No, I know. And hey, maybe you take a little Reuben Foster flyer on him and hope that he can come back. But
we can always call Reuben Foster back too.
Yeah, we got really close friends that are Steelers fans, and like I couldn't tell you how much they were talking up Devin Bush. Hall, I know,
that. Dude. It's so funny how much a year changes things.
Yeah, and obviously I love the potential of Devin Bush, but obviously we have to think about it to the standpoint of if they're walking away for what reason. And obviously that goes into every single one of these guys, but majority of these guys, it's money. With Devin Bush, it's like, isn't he coming off his rookie deal? So it kind of like tells you more than it is.
Oh yeah, dude, he completely underproduced over in Pittsburgh, and the injury, like the dude sucked. But hey, maybe get him for low.
This next question is from Tim Towner. Hogshaven states that Taylor Heineke is a Rorschach. I don't know how to pronounce it. Test for Commanders fans. So let's play that game. When I say Taylor Heineke, you say,
"Boy, he's one of the boys." That dude gets it off camera. The guy's a cool dude. I love him for that. I'd want to keep him around just because of how much he fucks.
All right, Hall. When I say Taylor Heineke, you say.
Top tier backup. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to him coming back just because we know we're going to get with him as far as like he can step in, be a spot starter, give you some wins here and there. And obviously him and Hal got a relationship. I think he would take good to like the mentor role of mentoring Hal and like learning the offense and whatnot.
He's not asking if you want Taylor Heineke back. He's just saying like, what do you like?
I know. I'm just saying like
that comes to mind when you
top tier backup. Top tier backup.
When I say Taylor Heineke, you say Bush Light. That's
Bush Light. He's one of the boys, man.
Bush Light, baby.
Bush Light.
Guaranteed. Taylor Heineke drinks of the beer bongs without a doubt. He has to chug those things, man. You know, he's a beer bong. Like he has his own beer bong that he brings to parties. Like that guy. Yeah. He's that guy.
He probably he probably set the collegiate record for that too.
Dan Snyder gave him a W to stick on his beer bong and pays him $1 million for it.
Yeah, pays him.
That's hysterical. Now this next question from Tim Towner. I heard Dane Brugler say that the combine is less about finding guys than it is about eliminating guys. Wondering if you were able to eliminate any players from day one consideration.
From day one consideration. Oh, okay. That's a pretty good one.
What you got, Hall?
Bryce Young. I don't think he's going to slip to us at 16 anymore.
Okay. Are you talking about like who's going to drop out of the first round altogether or
no, I mean
who are we not taking?
I think Christian Gonzalez. I think there was a lot of smoke around like, oh, maybe Christian Gonzalez will drop to us, but after that combine, I think that he is moved out of our draft range.
Well, he means more so of that you've lost interest in.
Oh,
Somebody, yeah,
I didn't even watch the
up the
combine, so I don't even know,
expectations.
honestly.
Well, I know you don't have to watch it, but based on the measurements, is there anybody that like kind of their stats rubbed you the wrong way in this sort of
I didn't even
what
know
you've
anybody's
seen?
measurements. I didn't even pay attention to the combine this weekend.
Honestly, Tim, not gonna lie to you, I did not watch the combine. I do not have a lot of time to be able to do that. I don't watch TV anymore, but I was obviously keeping stats with who was the Commanders were meeting with. I was meeting with guys that I really liked, being able to see what they were doing here. But I'll say Peter Skoronsky with 31-inch arms. I think that's probably the lower of the draft class. And I've always said that he's going to be a guard at the next level. No disrespect to him. He's going to be a very good plug and play guard. But in that sense, in the first round capability, I'm not. Bye.
Yeah, it's not a lot of guys like fell out of round 1 necessarily because
Like
of
DeJuan
core
Jones had
workouts.
38 arms.
Yeah, that's insane,
38.
dude. Look up Zach Kuntz's RAS score. He's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10. Yeah,
dude, his measurements are insane. But I think like just looking at the 40 time, and I don't know why this always seems to happen. Like we were talking earlier before the show went on about how Florida's quarterback room just like they never really produce like the guys, which is kind of concerning for Anthony Richardson. But like their safeties and their corners for whatever reason always just suck in the 40. It seems like 9 times out of 10. Like it's weird because like they get a lot of good athletes, you would think, but like Trey Dean and both of them, they both and the other guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but they definitely moved themselves down a little bit. I know one of them had a good vertical, but like their workouts, they both ran in the 4.6s, and it's just kind of like they might not be day 2 guys anymore, or second round, So
Yeah.
It's interesting, but not a lot of guys really hurt themselves that bad, I don't think.
I got you. Now, this next question, Hall, this is from Jeff Miles. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. A lot of good linebackers have been released. I know it's not our main focus. I think that offensive line and cornerback, but shouldn't we consider signing an Eric Kendricks type player?
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy that's still like towards the top of the league every year in tackles. I know a lot of people want to say, well, what did you do for Minnesota? Their defense was pretty bad, but I mean, their secondary was horrible, so I don't really put a lot of that on the linebackers and the fronts four. But I mean, yeah, like I said, he's a big name guy. I'm sure he's going to have a market out there. Probably going to have better offers than what the Commanders are going to offer because, like we said, I think they're going to stick to kind of like that mid-tier to bottom of the mid-tier kind of like level guys. I don't think they want to go out and spend on a big name linebacker when they can get Cole Holcomb back for way cheaper. So I would consider it, yes, but will they do it? Probably not.
Yeah, and so, Jeff, I do understand what you're saying because obviously this would make the team better just to have the stability, to have that good veteran presence at the linebacker spot that, kind of has that recognition. But I more so am looking at this like I want this team to be built in a way that a quarterback like Eric Kendricks would take less money to come here. And that's what I'm more interested in being able to build and adding that into the equation, kind of like Bobby Wagner did in a sense, and it didn't work out correctly. But that's what I'm more looking forward to. Would I love a player like Eric Kendricks who could come in and help and stabilize things? Absolutely. But it comes down to price. And I think that retaining our guys is more important at the moment because we are coming to a crossroads for multiple young men, Cam Curl, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and we're going to need to be able to figure those problems out, and I want to be able to have the cash to be able to help out with that decision.
I say Dan Snyder just goes like early 2000s Dan Snyder and just drops the bag on everybody, every big name player out there. Just who cares? Do it.
Yeah, that's the tight Snyder. Yeah, I'm down with signing with whoever, dog.
All right, now this next question is from Brandon Reinbold in the Discord chat server. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you. Reed, question for the pod. Who's your number
he's
one?
Fido. It's Fido.
Fido. Who's your number one free agent target?
Well, as a furry, I don't know much about football because I'm spending a lot of time looking at anime and going to Comic-Con conventions. But if I had to choose, my number one target would probably be one of the offensive linemen. I think if you can get somebody like a Mike McGlinchey or even a Caleb McGarry, if he's going to be out there, I do think I like Orlando Brown, but I do think it's going to be tough to bring him in. Of course, hey, maybe that would help bring in Lamar. You know what I'm saying? Because they're friends from Baltimore. But I do think one of those offensive tackles, just that you can plug in there, and then if you need Cosme to slide in, I'll say go for it, brother. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just a simple canine.
I'll say our number one free agent target, I'll say, is to retain Cole Holcomb. Because I think Mark explained it really well in saying that Cole Holcomb is not going to command a huge dollar amount in free agency, right? So that's somebody you could retain for kind of like the average kind of money and get good production out of that is stable. Obviously got hurt last year, but it's somebody you want to bring back who knows your system, that can do well here, gets along with the guys and produces when he is on the field. And so I think for that money number, I think it is smarter to go with Cole Holcomb, retain him, rather than paying big money for more of the veteran guy and possibly having an injury or two that could be a concern with all that money tied in. So the less money, the better. It's always the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'll go with. I'm just looking at now. I think Jawan Taylor's a right tackle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say Jawan Taylor, just get that right tackle position sewed up. I know he's been kind of meh in the running game, but he's a beast in the passing game and he's durable. So I would say right tackle would be a position, especially a position of need. So
Okay.
I also really like Mark Bullock real fast bringing up Andrew Wiley. That I like that idea, bringing him in from Kansas City, and the fact that he has that positional versatility.
Good job, Fido. I'll make sure Reed pulls out the peanut butter tonight for you. Now,
Thank you. I love it when my master does that.
This next
That's
question,
one of my favorite things.
This next question is from Tim Towner.
Extra chunky.
If by any chance any of the top 4 quarterback prospects drop to 16, would you take them? Or any specific ones? Would you move up for any, Fido?
Ooh, I mean, obviously, I really like Bryce Young. I love the way CJ Stroud looked fantastic throwing the ball in Indy.
Man.
I tried not to get too caught up in the Anthony Richardson hype. Like, he's rare, but I don't. That doesn't really do it for me at quarterback. Although I do think if he goes the right system, he's going to make somebody very happy. But I'm also I get a lot. I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this. I like Will Levis. I do. I think the guy's tight. I think he's pretty cool. Yeah, it's definitely a white thing. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for putting that out there. Yeah, I don't want to draft CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, any of them boys. No, that's stupid. If anything, Will Levis is. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I don't want to draft Will Levis anymore.
Dude, the country accent was just spot on, man. It just was. Honestly,
they're so gross.
I don't want to draft any of them boys.
They're so gross. That's like Alabama football until 1971. Shane Gillis talked about that. He was like, we put the person on the moon before Alabama segregated their football team. It took 4 weeks for them to be like, you know what? They're pretty good.
But Tim, on a serious note, if any of them, I think Bryce Young is the only one I'd be willing to mortgage on at 16. Just because I think Reed did a good job of talking about him and the processing. Because I feel like the processing really does go a long way for a quarterback, especially a guy like Alex Smith, where you saw was able to decipher information, get the ball out quick, just out to his guys, which helped him progress as a quarterback. We saw that in Kansas City and here in Washington. I think Bryce Young is a lot like that. And so I love Bryce Young and the ability to get the ball out of his hands quick, knowing where to go with the ball, and he's confident with it. And I think that he can do that at the next level. Would I trade up for it? Probably not. I think that there's if there's that many quarterbacks going in the first round, I think we're gonna have a good chance at a really good player at 16. But I wouldn't trade up for any of them. I wouldn't go after Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, any of those guys. I've been on adamant in saying that my best case scenario is Washington trading back in the first round, getting an extra first rounder for next season. That way they can move up for one of the better quarterbacks in that draft, kind of like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen in those relative drafts. Being able to move up to go in the same area to get them. Maybe not 1, maybe not 3, but 6 or 7. Maybe that's an area they can go to next year. So no, I would not trade up, and I would not draft any quarterback in the first round this year. Next year is the draft to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade up for any of the quarterbacks. I mean, obviously it would take a king's ransom to get all the way up to 1 to get Bryce Young. But if a guy like CJ Stroud, for whatever reason, somehow, some way, maybe they drop like a Laramie Tunsil, like bong mass pick on the draft night, and he drops to 16. And I would definitely take CJ Stroud at 16. I know people are like, oh, Ohio State quarterbacks will never work out in the NFL. But I just think that I don't know. CJ Stroud, he just looks different than the guys like Justin Fields, who obviously had all that talent around him and was throwing to people that were like 25 yards open down the field by running by themselves. Obviously, Dwayne put up crazy numbers at Ohio State, but obviously he got to the NFL, and I guess he didn't have that same like drive and work ethic that he was putting in at Ohio State.
But they'll
So
tell
I
you
just
that
think,
he came to a bad team. That's what they'll tell you.
yeah, I know, but I think that CJ Stroud is, and he didn't even show his running ability because he didn't really need to, but he is athletic, more athletic than people give him credit for, and I think that he's outside of Bryce Young probably the best pure passer in this draft, and I think that yeah, I think that he would blend well with this offense, and he's a young quarterback on a rookie deal. But again, he's not getting down to 16, and I wouldn't trade up into the top 10 to get him either.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not that high on Stroud as everyone else is. I don't think it's about Ohio State. I think it's about that type of offense. I think Florida does a similar
Well,
type
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing
yeah.
where they take the Pee Wee playbook.
But people hear
and
Ohio State and they automatically are like, no, he's an
no,
Ohio
like
State quarterback.
the reason why I say is because when those college offenses, they're
No,
not.
you're right, but I'm saying
They're
that's what
not
people
interested
say.
in progressing quarterbacks to succeed at the next level. They're interested in winning games with what they have in their arsenal at the moment. And a lot of these teams will go with the easy offenses that are generated with lots of points like Ohio State, but it doesn't progress the quarterback. Yeah, it looks really good. It wins you games. It gets you national championships. It gets you drafted, but most of your guys are not succeeding. And I don't think there's any – look at all the quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. Right? Look back over the years. And like Russell Wilson, for example, did he come from a kind of crazy system like that? No. Pat Mahomes did. And the thing is, Pat Mahomes sat for a year and he learned. He learned how to go into this new system coming from with Alex Smith. And so it has that area has to happen. So like CJ Stroud, Richardson, I am not interested in whatsoever, because when you're not ready to kind of decipher what's happening around you, get the ball in a confident way out of your hands, you're going to have problems in the league. And Hall, you and I argued about Justin Fields with this, and they said, why wouldn't you run the ball more with Justin Fields, because he's not doing well as a passer? Like, because what's going to happen is you start running the ball, he's going to get hurt, and then he's going to blame his career on the injury, and look where we are. They're speculating on trading away, Justin Fields for you, and that's what my whole point is. You cannot do that with these quarterbacks. You cannot guarantee that they're going to run the ball a bunch of times a game, because they're going to get injured. Going to happen.
That's why I don't know. People are so fascinated with. I mean, obviously you're fascinated with Anthony Richardson because he has all the tools and he's such an athletic freak. But
at the combine.
At the end of the day, yes, he's a freak and he can probably be like Lamar Jackson as far as running the ball goes. But like, if you just watch his game tape, you realize that he's nowhere near ready to be an NFL passer.
But I did see that one pass he had where he's standing flat-footed and just chucks it 70 yards down the middle of the field. Dude. And that's the kind of play that where you're like, oh my goodness. But you also have to remember it's going to be hard to be able to get that in the NFL.
He had those every game, like a play or two each game where like you were just like, Jesus, are you serious? Like, how do you do that? Nobody else can make that play. And like the one, I forget who.
Kind of like against. You at work.
Yeah, where he spins away from the tackle and then throws it was for a 2-point.
Oh, yeah, it was against Utah. That was my first time watching him, and I was like, I came after that game. I was like,
that was week 1. And after that,
this dude's going to be a number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, everybody's putting up.
Then I watched him the next week, and I was like, yeah, he might not be a first rounder. I don't know.
Like he does things where you're just like, Jesus, what are you?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say to my argument is like most of the most successful quarterbacks in the NFL are not successful teams in college. It's because their type of offense does not do well in college because it's more of the gimmick type, and what doesn't translate to the NFL. Right. So usually the most productive quarterbacks, besides Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar is different just because he's a freak of nature in itself.
Trevor Lawrence was playing at Clemson. They won national titles. Tua won national titles. Jalen Hurts was balling at Oklahoma.
Like more so like looking back like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. It wasn't like they were like, balling college football out of the water. It wasn't like they were guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If that makes sense. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough. I'm sorry about my tent joke. It wasn't very funny. It rubbed Reed the wrong way, which is really weird because out of all people, it rubbed Reed the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I was just grossed out by it.
I know. I don't.
I just think time and place, Kyle.
You have
you gotta.
Your morals.
Yeah, that's the one that set me off.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We can't thank you guys enough for listening. If you've made it this far, you're a champion. If there's any prospects you guys want us to break down next week, feel free to message us on Twitter at the Burgundy Zone. You can find Reed at Mike Reed 2156 on Twitter or Hall at TBZ Money Mike 301. Make sure you go follow them and just send us a DM. Let us know who you want us to break down, and we'll more than happy be able to do that. Oh my goodness! I
DM
forgot.
DM your nudes to
What did you
Reed
forget?
also. He wants all
Yes.
your
No,
nudes.
Reed
Oh, yeah.
wants your
All
news.
of
We have one more question. I
All
forgot
of
about this because Tanner sent this in. His dad is a huge fan of our show, watches all the time. So I really appreciate you,
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you.
Rublick, for watching. But he wants to know if cutting Curtis Samuel and having Antonio Gibson fill that role would be a good idea.
Ooh.
I would say no, because Antonio Gibson has changed his body like so much from what he was in college to like now to be like kind of put on that weight and that muscle to be like a running back. Obviously, he still has the speed and like the agility and whatnot, but I just think that Curtis Samuel has he has a unique skill set that not many people in the NFL have, and I think that he's gonna be a huge weapon, a nice toy for Eric Bieniemy, while also in the same breath, Antonio Gibson has a unique skill set that I think Eric Bieniemy is going to take advantage of. But why not have two people with unique skill sets on the field at the same time? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I just want to put this out there. It looks like the Seahawks have locked up Geno Smith right before the trade deadline. So they're out of the quarterback sweepstakes, it looks like, at the moment. But I do like this idea. And I'm not going to say I don't want Curtis Samuel to be cut, so to speak, because I do know that his cap number is big. But let's say it did happen, hypothetically. Then, yeah, Antonio Gibson, that's the perfect person that you want in motion before every snap. Like, imagine Sam Howell turning around, giving it to Antonio Gibson, and telling the linebacker to have to keep up with Antonio Gibson while he's full speed. Not going to happen. And I think that he's not as good as a receiver as Curtis Samuel, especially deep downfield, like we saw Curtis Samuel be utilized on 3rd and 4th down this year. So I think in that capacity, you're going to be limited with Antonio Gibson. He's not the same as Curtis Samuel in that breadth. But I do think that you can use him like Curtis Samuel behind the line of scrimmage pre-snap and be able to have advantages off of that. But no, I don't think that Antonio Gibson can replicate what Curtis Samuel does.
Yeah. Also, I like the idea. I think I could totally see them doing something like that. Like if Curtis goes down, or if they do end up cutting him, I could totally see them using him in motion all the time, like you talked about. I think that would be fantastic. Also, another thing to keep in mind though is we only have like another year left of Antonio Gibson. They're not going to re-sign him, I would imagine, after his contract's up. So next year's basically it for him. So I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how they even use Antonio Gibson.
Yep, it will be very interesting. I'm really excited for this season, man. It's going to be awesome. All
And
right,
it happens every year, and then we just get disappointed.
I know, it happens every year. But this one could be different. It could be different this year.
Could
all right,
be.
everybody.
Bruh,
That's going to
why did I just read on Twitter?
What?
Tom Brady might not be done after all. People are saying keep your eyes on Miami.
I
'Cause
told you it's San Francisco. It's
'cause
San
his-
Francisco.
No, it's
Nah, they
because
just said
his-
Miami, but yeah.
It's because his stand-up career isn't working. Did you read that, Tom
Yeah.
Brady?
Yeah, I heard that.
No,
I was
the
like,
least funny person of all
You know
time.
what the best joke about from his comedic career
What?
was? His
That
comedic
he's
career.
straight? Oh no, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
What is it? There's that joke where it's like, all my life I told people I wanted to be a comedian. Everybody laughed at me. Well, no one's laughing now. It's like, all right, Amy.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Really do appreciate you guys a whole lot. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to be able to give you guys notifications every time we go live. That way you're able to watch along and follow along. Really appreciate you guys.
Live.
All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
Thank God that mangy mutt's out of here. I hope he didn't incriminate me in any way.
Not as much as they already did. All right, everybody.
You owe him some peanut butter though, so
We do.
get that ready.
he's gonna
Washington
put it in my
football.
ass.
Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched the BurgundyZone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!